Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I'm Revel Vino Shorty. I'm going to keep doing this in this universe or any other you care to mention. And today, the thing I'm going to be doing is reviewing Ultimate Invasion. It's kind of hard to review this one without talking about the nature of issue ones and tie-in to big event kind of things. It is just it's part of the follow-on from the Ultimate Universe thing, which happened a good few years ago, and then there was the Secret Wars thing, which happened a few years later. Which ended up changing the universe, and it ties into specifically the fact that Miles Morales is, at the time, at least I was aware, the only survivor from the Ultimate Universe, and pretty much all the other universes were completely wiped out. And yeah, cool, fun and all. But without knowing the necessary details of all that one, it becomes a question of, can I still jump onto this issue 1 of a 4-part miniseries and still be able to get a full enjoyment from it? And I'm going to be honest, thankfully, yes, I can. I got a lot from this. When I first started flicking through, I had no idea who some of these people were, but everything was explained in universe on the page, and done in ways that were actually useful to the story rather than just as a bunch of information, which generally was a concern. Hickman has a tendency to really lay out the infographic and make sure that he presents everything in very easy to understand ways, which are cool if done in universe, but if you just want to read a cool story about an invasion from an Ultimate Universe, then maybe cut that down and actually just get onto the story. And they do. In fact, he does it in like a cool way. There's a bit in a Rick and Morty episode a while ago about the idea of starting stories when the story starts. It doesn't particularly bother me, but I think you got two ways of doing it. You either have a start point for the story, and then if you're going to begin before, it'd be like 2 months earlier, and then you go forward in time 6 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. Do it that way. It feels like you're building up something instead of being like, here's everything that happens, and now 2 months later. It just feels like, why bother telling us that then? Like, why not just start at the beginning? I feel like there's a way of doing it which actually adds to a sense of tension that you're building up towards an event. It's obviously something which is going to happen. We know this is a thing that is going to happen because we are told there is a start point and we're looking at stuff that's already happened in the past. It just works better. And it generally works. It builds tension. And it managed to do this by explaining stuff from the point of view of the characters in the comic book, mostly the Illuminati, if I remember correctly. My knowledge of Marvel social and power groups is really not that big. I don't tend to read a lot of the big event stuff and the big crossover things. I'm reading the Carnage Reigns thing at the moment, thankfully. It's got some great creators in. But this one, I honestly went in kind of dry, and it didn't bother me. Like I say, they introduced all the characters really effectively. They spent a lot of time discussing things, but in ways which cool. The character dialogue did work. Everyone seemed to have a reason for what they were saying rather than just, imagining an imaginary person who didn't know what was going on. And it also, I gotta say, it looks pretty good as well. I've criticised Hitch in the past because he was responsible for one of my favourite, or used to be one of my favourite comic book series, The Authority, and he had this absolutely huge, over-the-top sci-fi scale going, which I really, really enjoyed. But recently, I've not found his work as being as enjoyable, but I think it might be down to where he's using it. Yes, it's all well and good advertising the Al Ewing Ron V Venom as a big sci-fi epic kind of thing, but it actually wasn't that much. It was more personal story of family with some horror thrown in there, a little bit of Eldritch stuff going on, and some like actual multiversal sci-fi stuff rather than big epic space battle stuff. And that's clearly what Hitch does best. And he gets way more of a chance in this one, because we are dealing with OTT ridiculous science things. In fact, OTT ridiculous things is kind of how I'd frame this entire first issue. It is not subtle in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't build up anything slowly and subtly. It ramps things up. And it does so by making up a bunch of science things and applying comic book logic to it. There's an odd moment of personal interaction which happens between Miles Morales and an alternate Reed Richards, the Maker, if that means anything to you, if you have read these kind of things. And that's pretty close as we get to a moment where it slows down. Other than that, we are talking tension and pacing throughout with actually really good sci-fi conceptual artwork. There's fantastic beats where we're getting a description of various things the Maker has gone and stolen, and we just get single panel representations of what's actually happened. It feels perfectly done in a just explosion of information kind of thing. It doesn't slow anything down. It adds to the tension again, which, yeah, I've said the tension like 5,000 times. This is that kind of comic book. The only criticism I have for it is when you get to the end, because there's it kind of paints our Reed Richards in regular Marvel Universe Reed Richards in an odd light. I'm not sure I've followed it quite. I mean, maybe I would need to read more Fantastic Four and Marvel books to get it. But also, it's a big, expensive comic book, and when you get to the end, you have several pages of artwork. Now, some comic books can do this where they put some teaser artwork for what's happening in the following issues to give you a little bit like, ooh, what's got to come. In this one, it's pretty much just pages of Hitch's artwork from stuff we've seen in the comic book, just uninked and uncoloured. And I feel like asking us to pay that much for those extra pages, it doesn't feel great, if I'm honest. But it's only 4 issues. Maybe it'll be worth it. And it's Hickman. He does great things, and hopefully this will be one of those great things. That's it for me today. I'll be back tomorrow with another review. Until then, look after each other, everyone. Stay safe. Bye!